Jake the Mountain Johnson wiped the sweat from his brow as he stepped into the Galactic Fitness Center. The automated doors whooshed open with a melodramatic flair, as if announcing the arrival of some intergalactic superstar. Which, let's face it, Jake kind of was, at least in his own mind. "Ah, smell that, boys," he exclaimed to his equally buff human companions, taking an exaggerated whiff. "Wow. The sweet aroma of alien sweat and crushed dreams, it's like a potpourri of defeat." His friends, Mike the Cannon, yes, his parents had a twisted sense of humor, and Steve the Noodle Nyan, don't ask, chuckled as they followed him inside. The trio had been regulars at this gym for the past few months, ever since humanity joined the Galactic Federation, and they'd been assigned as cultural ambassadors. Because nothing says welcome to the galaxy quite like sending 3 meatheads to represent your entire species. As they strode through the gym, aliens of all shapes, sizes, and consistencies turned to gawk. Some had multiple eyes that blinked in asynchronous patterns, while others had tentacles that curled in on themselves like they were trying to hide. A gelatinous blob in the corner quivered so hard it nearly liquefied completely. "I think we've still got it, lads," Jake said with a wink, flexing his biceps for good measure. "These Econos just can't get enough of the gun show." Mike snorted. "Yeah, because they're terrified we might accidentally step on them and cause an interstellar incident." "Speak for yourself, Cannon," Steve retorted. "Some of us have the grace of a noodle." As they approached the weight section, a hush fell over the area. The various alien species scattered like cosmic cockroaches, leaving behind a single, trembling Zorblaxian. The poor creature looked like what you'd get if you crossed an octopus with a flamingo and then stretched it out on a rack for good measure. Well, Jake drawled, his voice dripping with more sarcasm than a teenager's Twitter feed. "If it isn't our old pal, what's your name again, buddy?" The Zorblaxian's eye stalks quivered as it responded in a voice that sounded like a kazoo with a head cold. "Gloop Gloop, the mighty defender of the—" Yeah, Gloopy, we remember," Mike interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "You're the one who's always yapping about how your species is the pinnacle of evolution or some such nonsense." Gloop Gloop puffed up his chest sacs indignantly. "It is not nonsense. The Zorblaxian physique is the result of millions of years of careful genetic manipulation. We are the perfect balance of strength, agility, and slimminess," Steve offered helpfully. "Intelligence." Gloop Gloop squeaked, his voice cracking like a prepubescent choirboy. Jake leaned in close, his massive frame dwarfing the alien. "All right then, Gloopy, how about we put that perfect physique to the test, eh? A little friendly competition between species?" The Zorblaxian's eye stalks darted around nervously, looking for an escape route. Finding none, he straightened up to his full height of, well, let's just say he'd have trouble reaching the top shelf at a supermarket. "Very well, humans. I accept your challenge. What shall be the contest?" The 3 humans exchanged gleeful glances. It was like watching a group of sharks decide which seal looked tastiest. "Oh, nothing too strenuous," Jake said, his voice as innocent as a politician's campaign promises. "Just a simple test of strength, endurance, and mental fortitude. We'll call it the Triathlon of Terror." Mike and Steve burst into laughter, which they quickly and poorly disguised as coughing fits. Gloop Gloop's skin changed from its usual mauve to a sickly chartreuse. "Triathlon of Terror? That sounds rather ominous." "Nonsense," Jake boomed, slapping the alien on what he assumed was its back. Gloop Gloop wobbled like a bowl of extraterrestrial Jell-O. "It's just a bit of friendly competition. Tell you what, why don't you gather a team of the gym's finest athletes? Any species you like. We'll make it a proper showdown, humanity versus the galaxy." The alien's eye stalks perked up at this. "Any species, well, perhaps that would be more equitable." Yes, I accept." As Gloop Gloop scurried off to recruit his team, the 3 humans huddled together. "All right, boys," Jake whispered, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Time to show these Zixianos what us Deathworlders are made of. Mike, you're up first with the deadlift challenge. Steve, you've got the endurance run, and I'll finish it off with the mental challenge." Mike raised an eyebrow. "Mental challenge? You?" Jake grinned. "Trust me, I've got something special planned." An hour later, the gym had been transformed into an arena of sorts. Aliens of all descriptions crowded around the designated competition areas, buzzing with excitement. Some were taking bets, exchanging credits, and various shiny objects that might have been currency or might have been particularly interesting pieces of lint. Gloop Gloop had assembled his team. A Krantok warrior with rippling exoskeletal plates, a Volux sprinter whose legs seemed to go on for miles, and a Cerebron philosopher whose massive brain case pulsated with barely contained intellectual energy. "All right, folks." Jake's voice boomed through the gym, amplified by a translator device that made him sound like a game show host on helium. "Welcome to the first, and possibly last, depending on whether we survive Galactic Gym Showdown. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of cheers, warbles, and what might have been mating calls from a few overly excited spectators. First up, Jake continued, we have the Lift of Doom. Contestants will attempt to deadlift the heaviest weight possible. Representing the galaxy, we have Krog the Krantok. The exoskeletal alien stomped forward, its footsteps leaving small craters in the gym floor. It flexed its 4 arms, each the size of a human torso, and roared. The sound was somewhere between a freight train with indigestion and a heavy metal concert in a blender. And representing humanity, Jake gestured with a flourish. The man, the myth, the walking advertisement for protein shakes, Mike the Cannon. Mike stepped up, cracking his knuckles. He looked almost comically small next to the Krantok, like a chihuahua challenging a rhinoceros. Krog laughed, the sound reminiscent of gravel in a washing machine. Tiny human think he lift more than Krog. Krog crushed puny human. Mike just smiled. Bring it on, big guy, let's see what you've got. The Krantok wasted no time. It stomped over to a bar loaded with weights that looked like they'd been salvaged from a neutron star. With a grunt that could have registered on the Richter scale, Krog lifted the bar. The gym fell silent, save for the creaking of the Krantok's exoskeleton. Slowly, painfully, Krog raised the weight to its full height. The digital display flickered, 1,200 kilograms. Gloop, gloop's eye stalks nearly popped out of their sockets. Ha! Beat that, human! Mike approached the bar, sizing it up like a long-lost friend. He cracked his neck, rolled his shoulders, and then added more weight. The crowd gasped. Krog's mandibles dropped open. Even Jake and Steve exchanged worried glances. Mike, Steve hissed, are you sure about this? That's like a small car's worth of weight. Mike winked. Relax, Noodle. I've lifted heavier things out of my fridge. With a deep breath, Mike gripped the bar. The gym held its collective breath, all 17 varieties of respiratory organs working in unison. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a grunt that sounded suspiciously like for the pizza, Mike lifted. The bar came off the ground. Slowly at first, then picking up speed. Mike's face turned red and purple, then a shade of crimson previously unknown to science. But he didn't stop. Up and up the weight went, past his knees, past his waist, all the way up to his chest. The display flickered, 1,500 kilograms. Mike held it there for a second, 2 seconds, 3, then carefully lowered it back down. As soon as the weights touched the ground, he turned to the slack-jawed audience and took a bow. The gym exploded. Aliens were jumping, screaming, and in some cases molting from sheer excitement. Krog stood there, all 4 arms hanging limply at its sides, looking like it had just been told that its entire life was a reality TV show. That's impossible, Gloop Gloop squeaked. No single organism should be able to generate that much force without being awesome. Jake supplied helpfully. Yeah, we get that a lot. Now, who's ready for round 2? The crowd's frenzy doubled. Apparently they were very ready for round 2. Next up, Jake announced, we have the run of ridiculousness. A test of endurance that will separate the sentients from the single-celled. Representing the galaxy, we have Zoom of the Volux. A blur shot to the starting line, resolving into a vaguely humanoid shape with legs that seemed to go on forever. Zoom vibrated in place, looking like it might spontaneously achieve light speed at any moment. And for humanity, Jake continued, the man who once outran his own shadow, Steve the Noodle Neai. Steve jogged up to the line, looking comically stocky next to the willowy alien. He gave a friendly wave to Zoom, who responded by vibrating even more intensely. The rules are simple, Jake explained. Last one running wins. The track will gradually increase in difficulty, so keep your eye stalks, or whatever sensory organs you possess, peeled. A holographic countdown appeared above the track. As it hit 0, Zoom took off like a poton with a grudge. Steve, on the other hand, settled into an easy jog. Ha! Gloop Gloop gloated. Your human is already falling behind. Zoom will. Just watch, Mike interrupted, a knowing smirk on his face. The first few laps were uneventful. Zoom lapped Steve several times, each pass accompanied by a sonic boom and a gust of wind that sent smaller aliens tumbling. Steve just kept his steady pace, occasionally waving to the crowd or stopping to tie his shoelaces. Then, things got interesting. The track began to shift and change. Hurdles sprang up, forcing the runners to leap. Zoom cleared them easily, its lanky form practically floating over the obstacles. Steve, however, had to put in considerably more effort, his stocky frame less suited for graceful leaps. Next came the terrain changes. The smooth track gave way to sand, then mud, then what looked suspiciously like the surface of an active volcano. Zoom's speed dropped considerably, its spindly legs ill-suited for the changing surfaces. Steve, however, seemed to hit his stride, powering through the difficult terrain with the determination of someone who really needed to use the bathroom. Hours passed. The gym had long since entered night cycle, but nobody left. Aliens were camped out in sleeping pods, taking shifts to watch the endless run. Zoom had slowed to a pace that could generously be called a shamble, its once graceful form now more closely resembling a marionette with half its strings cut. Steve, on the other hand, looked like he was just getting started. He jogged past the barely moving Zoom, flashing a thumbs up. "Great day for a run, eh, buddy?" Zoom responded with a sound that might have been a wheeze, a sob, or possibly its soul trying to escape its body. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, or about 3 Zorblaxian mating cycles, Zoom collapsed. It hit the ground with all the grace of a sack of overcooked noodles, twitched once, and was still. Steve jogged over, concern on his face. "You okay there, Zoom? Need a hand up? Maybe a protein shake? I've got some great recipes." The Volux let out a pitiful moan and curled into a fetal position. Jake's voice, now hoarse from hours of commentary, rang out. "And that's it, folks. The human wins round 2. We're all tied up as we head into the final challenge, the dreaded test of mental might." The assembled aliens muttered amongst themselves. Surely, they thought, this is where the humans would falter. After all, what could a species of muscle-bound gravity-worlders know about true intellect? Gloop Gloop, who had spent the last several hours stress-molting, puffed up his deflated chest sacs. "Ah, now you'll see the true superiority of galactic civilization. Brainy, the Cerebron, will crush your pitiful human mind." The Cerebron floated forward, its massive brain case pulsating with smug intelligence. It regarded Jake with the sort of look usually reserved for particularly slow amoebas. Jake, for his part, looked entirely unperturbed. In fact, he was grinning like a man who knew something no one else did, which, given the assembled brain power in the room, seemed highly unlikely. "All right, big brain," Jake said, cracking his knuckles. "Let's do this. What's the challenge?" Brainy's voice echoed directly into everyone's minds, a feat that would have been impressive if it hadn't been so annoyingly smug. "We shall engage in a battle of wits, human, a test of pure logic and reason. I have devised a series of complex mathematical and philosophical problems that would challenge even the greatest minds in the galaxy. Are you prepared to have your primitive intellect thoroughly humbled?" Jake's grin widened. "Oh, I'm prepared all right, but before we start, I've got a quick question for you, if you don't mind." Brainy's brain case pulsated with what might have been confusion. "Very well, human. What is your query?" "Well," Jake said, his voice dripping with faux innocence, "I was just wondering, have you ever heard of a little game we humans like to call rock, paper, scissors?" The gym fell silent. Aliens exchanged confused glances. Gloop Gloop's eye stalks tied themselves in a knot. Brainy's mental voice radiated bewilderment. "Rock, paper, scissors. Is this some sort of primitive Earth weapon system?" Jake laughed. "Oh no, nothing like that. It's a game of strategy and skill. Want me to teach you how to play?" Brainy's brain case swelled with intellectual curiosity. "A game of strategy, you say? Very well, human. Explain the rules of this rock, paper, scissors to me." For the next few minutes, Jake patiently explained the rules of the game to Brainy and the assembled aliens. The concept of rock beating scissors, scissors beating paper, and paper beating rock was met with a mixture of confusion, disbelief, and in one case, spontaneous mitosis. "And that's it," Jake concluded. "Simple, right?" Brainy's mental voice oozed condescension. "Simple indeed, human. A child's game of chance, nothing more. Hardly a test of true intellect." Jake's grin took on a predatory edge. "Oh, but that's where you're wrong, my big-brained friend. You see, rock, paper, scissors isn't just about chance. It's about psychology, reading your opponent, predicting their moves. It's a game of mind games. And let me tell you, nobody plays mind games quite like humans." Brainy's pulsations slowed, a hint of uncertainty creeping into its mental voice. "I see. And how do you propose we use this game to determine superior intellect?" Jake cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing ominously through the gym. "Simple. Best out of 100 rounds. You in?" "I'm." The Cerebron's brain case swelled with pride. 100 rounds. "Human, I could calculate the optimal strategy for 1,000,000 rounds in the time it takes your primitive synapses to fire. I accept your challenge." The gym erupted in excited chatter. Aliens pushed and shoved, and in some cases, oozed, to get a better view. Gloop Gloop's eye stalks were so tightly knotted that they resembled a pretzel made of overcooked spaghetti. Jake and Brainy faced off, the human's meaty fist hovering over his open palm, the Cerebron's telekinetic field shimmering in anticipation. "Ready?" Jake asked, his voice low and intense. "Rock, paper, scissors, shoot." Jake threw rock. Brainy, after a millisecond of calculation, chose paper. "Ah," Brainy's mental voice boomed. "First blood to superior alien intellect." Jake just smiled. 99 more to go, big brain. Let's see how long that luck holds out. The next few rounds were a blur of fists, shimmering force fields, and increasingly agitated alien spectators. The score stayed close, neither competitor able to gain a significant advantage. As they approached the final rounds, the tension in the gym was thick enough to cut with a knife, or whatever passed for cutlery among the more gelatinous species. The score stood at 4-9-4-8 in Brainy's favor with 3 rounds to go. Jake wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. Not bad, Brainy. But let's see how you handle the pressure. Pressure, Brainy scoffed. I've calculated every possible permutation of this infantile game. Your defeat is a mathematical certainty. Jake's eyes twinkled. Math, huh? Then let me introduce you to a little human concept we like to call psyching out your opponent. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Jake threw scissors. Brainy, its brain case pulsating furiously, chose rock. The gym exploded in a cacophony of alien exclamations, ranging from high-pitched squeals to low, rumbling belches of surprise. Impossible. Brainy's mental voice shrieked. The statistical probability is about to take a nosedive, Jake interrupted. Ready for the next round? Brainy's confidence was clearly shaken, its telekinetic field flickering erratically. Yes, let us continue. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. This time Jake threw paper. Brainy, second-guessing itself, chose scissors. The score was tied. The final round. The gym fell silent, save for the sound of various alien respiratory systems working overtime. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. And breath. Jake locked eyes with Brainy, his face a mask of concentration. This is it, big brain. Everything comes down to this. You ready? You ready? Brainy's mental voice was a whisper. I am prepared, human. Let us finish this. Jake nodded. All right then, rock. The gym leaned in. Paper. Ein store. Gloop, gloop's eye stalks untangled themselves, straining to see. Scissors. Brainy's brain case pulsated like a strobe light at a rave. Shoot. Jake's fist came down on his open palm. Brainy's telekinetic field shimmered. And then, Jake's hand remained flat. Paper. Brainy's field formed a distinct 2-fingered shape. Scissors. For a moment nobody moved. Nobody breathed. It was as if the entire gym had been frozen in time. Then, slowly, Jake's face split into a wide grin. Well, would you look at that? Seems like the primitive human brain pulled it off after all. The gym erupted. Aliens were jumping, screaming, oozing in excitement. Some were hugging, others were executing what might have been victory dances, or possibly seizures. A few of the more excitable species spontaneously changed colors, turning the scene into a psychedelic light show. Brainy floated there, its brain case deflated like a forgotten balloon. Its mental voice was barely a whimper. But how? The calculations, the probabilities. Jake walked over and patted the cerebron's casing sympathetically. That's the thing about us humans, buddy. We're really good at defying the odds. It's kind of our thing. Gloop gloop oozed over, his eye stalks drooping in defeat. I don't understand. How'd you do it? How did you beat our strongest, our fastest, our smartest? Jake exchanged glances with Mike and Steve, who had fought their way through the celebrating crowd. Well, Gloopy, it's like this. You guys have been evolving in your comfortable, safe little corners of the galaxy. But us, we come from a little place called Earth. A death world, you might say. Mike nodded. Where we're from, everything's trying to kill you. The animals, the plants, the weather, even the ground itself sometimes. So we adapted, Steve added. We got strong, we got fast, and we got smart. But most importantly, we learned to never, ever give up. Jake threw his arms around his friend's shoulders. That's right. Because on Earth, giving up means you don't survive. And let me tell you, if there's one thing humans are good at, it's surviving. The three of them stood there, grinning at the assembled aliens. In that moment, they didn't look like mere gym rats or cultural ambassadors. They looked like conquerors, like pioneers, like the vanguard of a species that had clawed its way up from the mud of a hostile world, and said to the universe, "Is that all you've got?" Gloop Gloop's eye stalks drooped even lower. So what happens now? Will you humans conquer us all? Enslave our species, destroy our civilizations? Jake laughed, a booming sound that echoed through the gym. Conquer you? Why would we want to do that? Now we've got a much better idea. He gestured around at the gym, at the diverse array of alien species all mingling and celebrating together. This right here. This is what we want. Competition. Friendship. A chance to learn from each other and grow stronger together. Mike nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, like Krog, buddy, he called out to the Krantak, who was nursing its sore exoskeleton in the corner. You've got to teach me that forearm lifting technique. With a few modifications, I bet we could break some serious records. Steve chimed in, addressing the deflated Zoom. And you, my speedy friend. Your acceleration is off the charts. We should set up some sprint competitions. I've got some ideas for improving your endurance, too. Even Brainy perked up a bit at this. Its mental voice, while still shaky, had a hint of curiosity. You wish to exchange knowledge? To learn from us as well? Jake grinned. Of course. That big brain of yours is incredible. I bet if we put our heads together, figuratively speaking, of course, we could come up with some amazing new technologies. How about it? Want to be workout buddies? The gym, which had fallen silent during this exchange, suddenly burst into cheers again. Aliens of all species rushed forward, eager to exchange training tips, challenge the humans to new contests, or simply bask in the presence of these fascinating Deathworlders. As Jake found himself surrounded by a crowd of excited aliens, all talking, or squeaking, or gurgling at once, he couldn't help but laugh. This, he thought, was what humanity's introduction to the galactic community should be all about. Not fear, not conquest, but a mutual exchange of ideas, of strengths, of the unquenchable spirit that drove all sentient beings to reach for the stars. He caught Gloop Gloop's eye, or eye stalk, and winked. So, Gloopy, what do you say? Ready for round 2 of the Galactic Gym Showdown? This time, everyone's invited. Gloop Gloop's body inflated like a balloon, his color changing to a vibrant, excited purple. Ah, yes, I believe we are. Let the games begin. And so as the sounds of laughter, friendly competition, and the occasional alien mating call filled the air, a new era of galactic cooperation was born. An era where the strength of humanity would not be used to conquer or destroy, but to lift up their new alien friends, sometimes quite literally. In the years to come, the Galactic Fitness Center would become famous throughout the cosmos. Species from every corner of the galaxy would flock to it, eager to test their mettle against the legendary humans and their alien workout buddies. New sports would be invented, combining the unique abilities of a dozen different species. Friendships would be forged in the heat of competition, and the boundaries between worlds would blur and fade. And at the center of it all, 3 human cultural ambassadors would stand tall, always ready with a friendly smile, a word of encouragement, and a challenge to push the limits of what was possible. Because that's what humans do best. They take the impossible, they stare it right in its beady little eyes, or eye stalks, or sensory appendages, and they crush it with a grin on their face and a twinkle in their eye. After all, when you come from a death world, everything else is just a walk in the park. A very strange, very alien park, but a park nonetheless. And so, dear reader, the next time you're feeling down, remember the tale of the Alien Gym Showdown. Remember that somewhere out there in the vast cosmos, humanity is probably challenging a blob of sentient goo to a push-up contest and winning, because that's just how we roll. Now, if you'll excuse me, I hear there's a Zorblaxian yoga class starting in 5 minutes, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let a bunch of stretchy aliens show up humanity in the flexibility department. It's time to show the galaxy what a real downward dog looks like. Humanity, fuck yeah.